Hey everyone, welcome to the Healing Narcissistic Trauma Conference. I'm Susan Ball, abuse recovery specialist and the host for the conference. And I'm here today with Svava Brooks, who has joined me, and I'm so excited to chat with you. Give us a little bit about your background and who you are and what you do. It would be great.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the important work that you do. I really appreciate any colleagues that take on a mission like this. So just like you mentioned, my tricky name, Svava Brooks. I'm actually born and raised in Iceland, but I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon today. Been in the States for almost 30 years. But I grew up in Iceland, and most of my childhood, basically until I got out of my house, never went to bed feeling safe in my house. So was a survivor of emotional, physical, sexual abuse, domestic violence going on. And my stepfather was definitely a narcissist and I think that was the hardest part for me to grasp. Because it was so part of just everyday routine. Like I thought this was normal. I mean, he was so mean and sarcastic, and probably that was the hardest thing to heal. I mean, the body, heals in some ways, but that psychological abuse of how he treated me and how that ended up very much, I picked up where he left off, right? The things that he used to say to me, I would be now saying them to myself, and really think really poorly of myself, and found myself in then some not so helpful relationships as a result of that. So long story short, I'm a trauma recovery coach today. I'm relentless. At some point on my journey, I'm like, no, I know my birthright is to be loved, to be accepted, to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. But I had to learn to do that for me before I could do that for anybody else. That along the way, once you find those missing pieces, I couldn't help myself but wanting to share that with other people. So I've been holding a safe space for adults. I run online support groups. I have a YouTube channel. I do one-on-one coaching, and then and I've written a couple of workbooks, because I do believe that final stage of healing, usually by the time people come to me, they've tried everything else and been in therapy for a while, but it's that thriving piece. It's that daily loving action that really makes that lasting shift. And I love to help people kind of make those final connections.
I love that. I appreciate you. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
And I can relate to your story as a child. I wasn't a stepfather, it wasn't any of that, but there was abandonment. You didn't feel belonged. There was no connection. There was no love. And all of that stuff. It was like you were just a pest that came about every once in a while and chatted. So I understand perfectly where you're coming from. And
Thank you.
It's nice to chat with people who work with women or men in that space, to bring them into the thriving space or the resilient space, and to really, it's one thing to recover, it's another thing to go to that next step, in my opinion anyway, my humble opinion. So we're going to talk about living from the heart and not the hurt, which so many people live from the hurt, which is kind of the victim consciousness.
Yes, it is, but it's interesting. I really avoided, I wanted to rush into becoming a survivor and thriver, right? I'm like, no, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim, right? But the thing is, we can't skip over the acceptance piece, right? To really accept that you were victimized. And that's also, I think, a part of it, kind of writing our story, kind of getting it out of here and here, out here, and then we can kind of sort through the mess. Oh, wait a minute, bad things happen to me. I'm not bad, right? How I treat myself poorly is a direct relationship because of how I was treated. So really kind of both owning and accepting, and also being willing to feel the hurt. And that's the hardest part. I mean, we live in a culture that would rather not we talk about our hurt, or let alone feel our hurt. So yes, we come back, and sometimes we feel like we're stuck in the victim stage, but it isn't enough of, that's the spin cycle.
Yeah,
Yes.
spin.
Exactly. We need to talk about it, but we do need to feel it. And unless we are willing to feel some of the hard stuff, we really can get through to some of that, what we call the good stuff. So
It is so true. And so many people are afraid to go there, but you need to go there. You need to go there. And I love that you brought up the word acceptance, because that's something that people don't talk about a lot. And when I learned that I had to accept that my ex-husband tried to kill me, and just accept that that happened to me, it wasn't the end of my story. It wasn't even a great part of my story. It was just one thing. That acceptance changed everything.
exactly. And accepting something it's not your identity, right? It's like,
No,
it's not your personhood, it's not part of who you are, but it's an event that has an impact. And I also think, the latter part of my healing journey was very much understanding the impact. It's like, oh, there's a reason why I'm a control freak. There's a reason why I obsess about certain things. There's a reason why I struggle with taking care of certain parts of my life, right? So that's the impact. But I felt so bad about the impact. That's where, right, that reshaming, because, oh, I must be so stupid, that's why I can't do it, just like my stepfather told me. But to understand, no, the reason I lack empathy and I'm controlling is because no one modeled that for me. No one showed me. No one cared for Svava and gave her warmth and nurturing and hug and safety. So my body had literally no idea how to do those things. And so acceptance is part of, like I say, crawling inside of ourselves. And okay, all right, sweet body, you've done a beautiful job, right? You've worked so hard for me. But I'm going to accept you. I'm going to accept all of you. I'm also going to accept all the things that I did in service of survival. Many things I wasn't proud of, sometimes even ashamed of. But I needed to accept and, extend myself some compassion and kindness, because I was just a textbook example of a child, an adult, right, who was horribly abused when I was a little girl.
Yeah, and it's accepting that. And so it's, the healing of the body, because I remember this was something that I think a lot of people maybe misunderstand. But in my fourth abusive relationship, because I kept patterning after what I learned as a child and not dealing with the issues that were inside of me, so I was filling up a void other ways, which I'm sure you can relate to in your life. The physical abuse, the actual strangling that healed and the bruises went away, was nothing compared to healing what was going on in here and what it was causing in my body.
Yes. Yes.
The sickness, that was hard.
Absolutely. I absolutely get it. And again, coming back to, I can feel tears in my eyes still thinking about it. It's like when that piece that was so important to your healing. Again, once I understood how profoundly powerful my body had protected me, literally by disconnecting me, literally checking out. I spent most of my childhood out of my body, just not a safe place to be, because there was just so much going on inside that I had no tools to express or to talk about. But once I was able to understand the same part of my nervous system and body that knows how to keep me safe, that literally checks out, is also has the capacity to help me work through it, to help heal and be present, that post-trauma growth that I know that you mentioned as well. But the tricky part is that when we have complex trauma, growing up with abuse and neglect creates complex trauma. You basically are living in a bunker, ready to fight or flight, or in that freeze fawn state your whole life. So when we are coming back into our bodies, your body is like, don't even try to rock the boat. We know how to do this. We're going to continue to do it. Right. So it creates a little bit of that inner struggle, right? That war against yourself when you're like, I want to change this. But once I understood how to work with my body, with my resistance, with my inner child. That little girl is like, don't you tell anybody our secrets, right? Once I was able to, and it's like these teeny tiny baby steps that we have to do that, or we will trigger ourselves back into, right, a downward spiral. So once I basically, and this is, I do a lot of trauma education with my clients. It's like, there's nothing wrong with you. Your body is brilliant. You are, a miracle. Once we understand how we work, why we do what we do, what's my interpretation of what happened, what are my thoughts and beliefs about it, and then as those messages come up from your body into your mind is just always trying to make up the story. Your body is sending up a signal, right? There's something wrong, there's something wrong, there's something wrong. And then the mind goes, okay, let's interpret what's going on. What's wrong? Oh, remember? That's what happened, right? So the part of your brain that captured those emotionally or physically abusive memories, it doesn't have a timestamp. It doesn't know that it isn't happening right here, right now. So I get kind of excited when I talk about this because, this was kind of the big piece for myself once I understood how to work with my body, and that I could work with my body. Once I found a way to help my nervous system to relax, my whole being relaxed. That was like the opening to my heart. My heart was protecting my heart, right? Our bodies instinctively protect our hearts when we don't feel safe in the world. But once I was able to help the body relax, right? Lots of back and forth, very slow, intentional dialogue, somatic healing. I do tension and trauma release as well. So more and more slowly, my body was like, okay, we are safe now. And then from that place, I was able to take better care of my body. All of a sudden, I was in touch with what I was feeling and what I needed, right?
Yeah, that's when you start to know what you need, what your needs, wants, and desires are.
Yes.
Because prior to that, you're just acting from memory. It's like muscle memory.
Responding. Yep.
Yeah, you're responding, and it's
Yes.
not necessarily what you want or need in your life.
No.
You think you do.
Yeah, and again, you think you do because it's a right. It's serving something,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's an unmet need, and until we find a way to meet that need, right, through mindfulness, meditation, yoga, or movement, be in nature, do breath work, eat good, wholesome food, right? Once we meet that need another way, our body, our minds, that connection, they will just tap into the old way of being. And because you did it for so long, it's now part of your subconscious, and it usually will just push you out of the way and off it goes.
Yeah, it's like a railway line, just goes on the same track.
Yes.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff around self-care, self-love, and I think they're extremely important. I didn't understand what self-love was. I didn't understand that I had to love me at the same passionate core level that I wanted somebody else to love me.
Yes.
That was a really interesting concept for my brain to even think about, really.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting when we think about it, because unless we have like images or sensation, I mean, that's how we learn. We learn by doing. We are all experiential learning creatures, right? We forget that. But sometimes it's helped me because English is my second language, and sometimes when people say a word to me and I'm like, there's no picture, no association, no memory, I have no historical perspective where I can pull up an interaction with someone where that word means something, right? So that was very helpful for me when it came to healing. And just like you said, how to be kind towards Svava, how to really care for Svava, how to nurture Svava. I'm like, there's nothing here. right? I was put into an orphanage when I was born for like the first 7 months of my life. So like that immediate mirroring attachment, I didn't have it. So I was just kind of like this brain walking around sitting on this body, right? So, but once I understood again what my body needed, what's the process of reconnecting, and a lot of that was through self-care. Even though I resisted it and I was resentful and judged other people who were doing it because they were so selfish. How dare they, right? It's like, I don't have time, right?
For me.
Exactly. But once I started doing it and being very intentional about it, like I apply self-compassion, that warmth, very intentional. Your body understands warmth. It connects through touch. Even though many of us don't like it and we don't like to be touched, who is the safest person to touch you? You. Right? Who do you really want the love and acceptance from? You. So once through, like I said, self-care became self-kindness, that then became self-respect, right? That then became self-compassion, and then self-love. And as you can see, I'm running my hands down my arms. This is actually helping my body. It stimulates the feel-good hormones in our bodies.
I love that. See, because when I grew up like you, I don't even remember being hugged. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
and I can remember, you know, as a teenager or a young woman, somebody would come up to me and hug me, even if it was a girlfriend. And it was such a foreign thing that my whole body would just stiffen, like, what the hell?
Yeah. It's not safe.
No.
Don't touch me.
And it wasn't that, you know, it brought up a painful memory. It was that I had no picture, like you said, for a second language to relate to that. It didn't mean anything. It was foreign.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's amazing. And it's a journey. It's not something you
Yes.
just start off, you know, loving yourself up or giving yourself hugs or touching yourself or embracing yourself and think it's not that quick.
No, and that's why I say, really, you know, kind of starting that shift from just surviving into thriving, it kind of requires a lifestyle change, meaning it's like you have to be incredibly intentional about it. And I got to that point because I was so sick and tired of the end of every day. I'm like, I'm exhausted. I've been chasing my to-do list all day, doing things for other people. I wasn't even on the list, you know, whatever I needed to do to even just take care of some of the basics for myself. And then I'm like, okay, I've spent all my life force, my energy, just in surviving, and my body's doing a beautiful job, but I'm wearing it out. We know the long-term impact of toxic stress on the body. That's what gets us sick. Your immune system just like, that's enough. I can't do it anymore. So I was determined, like I said earlier, I'm relentless. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna turn as much energy into learning how to thrive as much as I did into just survive. And so daily intention, you know, I start my day with my hand on my heart with a self-compassion practice. I feel the warmth of from myself on my body. Just this morning, brushing my teeth. Hey, beautiful. I see you now. For years, I looked in the mirror. I never saw anybody, but now I see her and I love her. I'm proud of, I kick ass. I've come a long ways, and I'm not to toot my own horn, but it's just like, I shouldn't be here. But when I've, you know, nurture and celebrate myself this way, I have so much more to give to my fellow human beings, because we, you know, you too, my friend, are a powerhouse.
But one of the things you said, oh, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
One of the things that you said, and I want everyone who's listening to understand this, it has to be intentional. If you want to heal or go from the victim consciousness to the healing consciousness, then over to the thriving consciousness, every step of that is intentional. There is no one else who can do it for you. So I often tell my clients who are struggling with self-care because they feel selfish or they've been told that that's selfish, to block off 20 minutes in your calendar, put a pretty color around it. Do not break that date with yourself because you're setting the standard for other people.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
if it means sitting in your chair for 20 minutes, taking deep breaths, I don't care what you do. You don't have to do anything fantastic, but you have to make that time intentional so it feels
Yes,
good. So you do it.
exactly. And your intention is it's like your free will. It's like you taking charge of your life force, your energy, and you move it into what you want and what you want for yourself. And yes, I struggled with self-care thinking I was selfish, but I quickly learned, take, like they do on the airplane, if you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, you can actually help the person next to you. But if you're just focusing, scrambling, putting the mask on them, you're going to pass out, right? You can't help the people around you. So it's been amazing, right? I started my healing for my kids, but once I recognized those little babies, they're modeling from me. They're looking, okay, so what is it like to be a happy embodied human? I'm like, oh shoot, I better be that person, right? I better become that change,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about what we say, it's about what we do. So yes, intention is powerful. And just like you said, if it's just putting your hand on your heart while you're doing something else in the morning, self-compassion practice, you know, because in the beginning, this wasn't very comfortable. Oh, okay, I'm being kind to myself. Oh, right. Just add it to something, sneak it up on yourself a little bit, or just go walk around one block, you know,
Yeah,
go hug a tree, pick a couple of flowers, right?
it doesn't have to be long or all
No,
day or a big spa weekend or any of that kind
no,
of stuff. That's not what we're
no,
talking about. It's
not
taking
at
those
all.
baby steps of intention. And I remember when I
Yes.
first started out, I did this most uncomfortable thing because it was the only thing I could think of to do that would step me out of my comfort zone. And after I would brush my teeth and get ready for work and stuff, I would wink at myself in the mirror. And it felt really, I would walk away and go, ew, nobody's ever going to wink at you. But now when I do it, if I remember to do it, because I'm not there anymore, it feels fun and really
Yes.
cool. But at first
Yes.
it was like you putting your hand on your heart and going, oh, this is, it was ridiculous, but it did what it was supposed to do.
Yes, yes. And I think it's also part of we can become the parent and the protector that we needed. I'm a huge fan of inner child work. I have mothered and reparented all myself through all the stages of development now, all the stages that were triggered when my kids would go through those stages. I learned about parenting, recognizing if there was a struggle. There was chances are that there was a little girl in here who was throwing a tantrum. It's like, how dare you be giving something to these babies where you didn't get it? So then I had to turn to myself, you know, with empathy and mindfulness, and just sit with that little girl inside of me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Yes, you did not deserve to be ignored and abused and abandoned the way you were, of course. And I will sit with you as long as it takes. And I see you, baby girl. I hear you. I feel you. I accept you.
Yeah, I'm
So,
big on inner child work too, because I wouldn't have
yes,
gotten where I am. I wouldn't have gotten to that thriving level without it. Did I want to
exactly.
do it? No. Didn't want to
It,
go, and I'm sure you didn't want to either.
yeah, it took a while. It took a while,
Yeah.
but it's been a very powerful piece. And she's my primary relationship now. Yep.
Yeah, even to this day, there are times when my little girl I can feel her getting um, stressed out or upset, and I will take some deep breaths and say, okay, what do you need right now? What do you need right now in this minute? What do you need? It's a mindfulness practice that we're connected, and I see you and I feel you and I know you're there, and we're going to get through this together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's exactly, like you said, a mindfulness practice, because the most pain, you know, we can probably reflect on our childhoods, was that we had all this suffering, but no one heard it. No one was there to see it. No one was there to validate. But so anytime we feel that within ourselves, I mean, that's really what the healing is all about. It's like you turn towards yourself with all that hurt, and you learn to sit with warm, loving presence with yourself, because inside of you, that little girl, she doesn't want anybody else. She wants your love, because she know you were there. You remember. It's like, yeah, I see you. You're absolutely right. And, you know, I'm not going to turn away from you. I'm not going to tell you to stop feeling those feelings, right? That hurt that we have to feel, right? We are the ones. And it's, you know, we learn to self-regulate. We learn to be present with ourselves and with our wounded parts as they come forth one at a time, just needing to be seen and heard.
And one of the things, the key takeaway from this is that if you are in abusive relationships and you're repeating the pattern, chances are there's something that you're carrying from that inner child, that wounded inner child, that needs to be healed. And you're looking for it in all the wrong places.
Absolutely. Yep. For a long time, I was taking my inner child and handing her to other people to love. Will you love her?
Do you love her? Take her. Take her. Take me.
Exactly. She's so needy. She's so angry. She's so, you know, I don't know how to handle this out of control child, right? So yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, that's what unmet needs do, because there are some profound, deep needs that we have, and it's part of being human. And if we don't learn about those needs just kind of take and fill up our whole bodies. And all of a sudden we're in relationships with the outside world acting like a 4-year-old, right? And it's not pretty. And unfortunately, then we will find ourselves in situations where people will gladly mother us or father us, and they'll take advantage of us, right? Because it's truly, we are asking someone else to parent us, but that is our job ultimately.
Well, Svava, this has been a great conversation. I'm so glad you joined me. Do you want to tell all the listeners about your gift? I think it's your self-compassion guide. Self-compassion, that's a big part of it.
Yes, it is. And again, it's one of those things that people throw around, you know, just go be kind to yourself. Like we mentioned, I had no idea how to love Svava or to show myself compassion or empathy. So it helped me to really kind of break it down. So in this guide, I'm basically going to talk about the 3 components of self-compassion. I'm going to give you some journaling prompts, some, you know, things to also, gratitude is a big part of self-compassion. And also to support you in that, I actually included a short audio, like a meditation, a self-compassion meditation that you can try out as well. So I really hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening to Your Healing. You Got This. See you later. Bye.